Welcome to the Quiet Warrior Show, where we help top leaders find their pathway to incredible success and a lifetime of happiness. Here is your host, Tom Dutta, the Quiet Warrior.
Warrior, the Quiet Warrior. Everybody, welcome to the Quiet Warrior Show. Tom Dutta like butter, and we are here. Now, live streaming is the next generation of podcasting. We're on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter. Very happy to announce we've just joined Rumble. Now, this is a pre-taping of a show that will be produced, and it'll be released on international podcast channels. Those include the good ones: iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, iHeart, Stitcher Radio, TuneIn Radio, and also a YouTube video premiere. So I'm going to bring our guest on the stage here and just welcome him. Welcome, Dr. Paul Zak. Welcome, Doc.
Welcome, Mr. Tom Dutta. Nice to see you.
All right, it's great to see you. Now, usually we would just start riffing and getting at it, but we're doing something very different in the show today. What if a podcast host and their guest, aka you, we could see real time if we're connecting. We could measure if we're happy. We can measure moments in the show, whether we're bringing it or not. Wouldn't that be cool?
Would be awesome if just someone had invented a technology that could measure our connectivity in real time. How might we do that, Tom?
Well, I'll tell you what, I'm going to just throw something up on the screen. Somebody did it. Somebody actually invented this incredible technology, and we're going to pull it off the screen there. But that's what today is going to be built on, and I'm honored to have Paul Zak here. So the first thing I'm going to tell the audience is that we're going to be editing and cutting out some of this transitional stuff. So normally you're going to have me introduce Paul, and I would read a bio, and it would be like, Paul Zak. But however, Paul said to me in a prior conversation, he says, I said, when I'm on shows, he said, those long introductions, he says, he just can't really handle those. So I thought, how could I create an immersive experience? So we're going to go now to a tape. We're going to start the show after the bumper's already being heard, Paul. So you're just going to see something come on the screen, and we're gonna just have fun. We're going to enjoy. So stand by in 3, 2, 1. Okay. How was that for a powerful introduction of the great Paul Zak?
Best intro ever, Tom. Thank you for doing that. Wasn't that lovely?
Yeah, we're putting on screen here the immersion screen. So we're taking a look at, and Paul, you can interpret that for us in a little while. Just quickly, what is the audience seeing? Just very intro on the screen there right now.
So we're seeing in real time the average of Tom and I's immersion, which is a neurologic measure, which is how the brain values social emotional experiences. And so it varies second by second. Green means it's super high. gray's around the middle, and red means we're taking a little break neurologically. So yeah, very exciting to be able to see real time what your brain loves.
Now, that's very cool. So, it's like falling on my sword here. It's a little bit vulnerable. It's like I'm the host. It's like, what if it shows that I suck? And then all throughout the show, go,
Look,
okay.
we're at 95. You're awesome. We're killing it, Tom. We're the best.
So to those out there, you're going to learn today about the implications of not just how great this technology could be, but measuring real time. And you can see the scores already going up. But I'm going to show you something else. So, Paul, I've got my smartwatch on here. Tell us what's going on. What's the connection between that and what we're seeing?
Right. So over many years, with funding primarily from the U.S. taxpayers, U.S. Department of Defense, we were tasked with identifying combinations of signals in the brain that would accurately and consistently predict what people would do after a message or an experience. So we were funded to create a neurologic prediction engine to help soldiers communicate more effectively and reduce conflict. And once we found these signals, they're very stable when they come out of the brain. The cranial nerves are the brain's output file. And so we carefully mapped out the relationship between the output file and what's happening in the brain. And here's the magic. Cranial nerves pass through the heart. So I'm feeding in standard, here's my wearable, standard heart rate. Heart rate doesn't predict anything, nor does heart rate variability, sadly. So we actually identified in the brain how the brain is subtly changing rhythms in the heart that we can catch up with a lot of algorithms in the cloud and capture this in real time.
Well, that's
100.
awesome.
We hit 100. We maxed out.
We hit 100. So what did that mean in that moment? What was happening between you and I?
So super valuable, right? So this is a really important experience for both of us. And so again, we looked at the baseline before we started recording, and Tom's a lot higher than I am. He's just a warmer personality. So there's some personality traits for people who are more emotional, more engaged, more friendlier. And so people like you, Tom, tend to have more friends. They tend to live longer. They tend to be happier in general. So I'm a happy person. I'm very optimistic, but I'm emotionally much flatter than you are. So that's just a thing.
Well, I already love you saying I'm going to live long. I'm glad I got that on tape. So we're gonna do something else here and just put a comment on the screen. We've got there it is. Great intro. And I can't tell you the name of the individual, but I think her first name might be Melissa. But thank you for that feedback. That's awesome. So that means we made an impact with that intro. Everybody, what we're measuring here as we go to the next segment, I just want to mention that we were looking at watching an intro done in a different way. Imagine if you could use this technology and what Paul's discovered in the workplace, creating better organizations, better teams, and in other areas of your life. So, Paul, we're going to do something else right now. So you can bring up the screen and share.
But I'm going to critique what you just said, Tom. You said, imagine this is being used every day in the workplace to improve employee experiences so that people can be more productive, more satisfied at work, and live happier, healthier lives.
Wow, it's amazing. So, you not only are creating cool technology, but there's a book that you've written. So we'll get into the book in a little bit. I just want to put the pictures on the screen there. The word immersion really, I think, is a cool word. We'll get into what that means. But first of all, we're going to go to a little audience participation. So if you've got people on the chat here, let's what we're trying to do is also look at immersion. So here's a picture, and Paul, you can play too. Mm-hmm. And there's two individuals on the screen. And the question is, what do these two people have in common? So, Paul, who's the person on the left there? Do you recognize that?
It's got to be Michael Jordan.
It's Michael Jordan. And the person on the right there is obviously the great Paul J. Paul
young,
Joseph.
handsome Paul Zak, right?
There it is. And so taking a look at that, what do these two have in common? Now, if anybody want to put a comment in the chat there. So, Paul, get your brain waves going, and we'll bring it. We'll bring
when I played high school basketball, I could dunk for about 2 years, and then I couldn't anymore.
Well, here's a comment. Let's take a look. This is we got another guest on. I think this guest might be from Utah, I believe. I think that's who you are. That's hilarious. Now I'll have the Star Wars theme music playing in my head the rest of the day. All right, go one step further and tell us, Master Storyteller, what do you think that those two images are telling us? What do they have in common? Just give us a thought, and then I'm going to reveal that to you. At the same time, we're going to have on the screen there the immersion scores. So we're taking a look at how Paul's heart and my heart and our brains are connected, right, Paul? So
Yeah,
bring that.
so the bottom is the high one is you, Tom, on the bottom, and I'm the lower one. Again, so what's interesting is there are personality differences, right? Some people are just more excitable, more emotional, again, warmer, and that's great. You learn about yourself as well.
Awesome. All right. Well, I'm going to basically reveal the answer here, and everybody you can chime in as you like. You look on the left there. Michael Jordan is shooting up, and on the right hand side there, Paul Zak is. Looks like you're holding a syringe. You're shooting up as well. There's the first thing that's in common. But really, what these two folks have in common, and I don't know if you knew this, Paul, but it's both of your birthday today. You and Michael Jordan share the same birthday.
I
Did you
did,
know that?
I did not know that. Wow.
All right. So happy birthday to you and to all of those out there. We will wish Paul a happy birthday. Throw it in the chat there. Let's move on to the next segment. Are you ready to rock here?
Sure, let's do it.
All right. What we're doing is we're going to take you into what's called Plato's Garden. So we're going to put something on the screen there. So we're going into Plato's Garden, and I need to set this up for you. First order of business is we got to put a bumper music on the screen. So just stand by while I grab that here, Paul. So everybody, what you're seeing is what goes on behind the scenes in creating a live interview. You don't see this when it's edited, but I'm putting something up. So just stay with us, Paul. Tell us something about where you live and what you've been up to this week while I find this and put it on the screen.
Yeah, I live out in southeastern California, out towards the desert, and nice valley. It's generally nice weather, and just came back last night from the Central Valley of California, working with an amazing company that's using our technology to create what they said they want to create the world's happiest workplace.
That's
That sounds
awesome.
like a good thing to do.
Absolutely. Well, I found the bumper music here. So everybody, let's just put that 3, 2, 1. Let's get immersed, Paul. All right, a little bit of an amateur-ish video there. Let me explain this. So we're going into Plato's Garden. You're probably wondering, the Twilight Zone, what's happening in Plato's Garden? Well, let's tell you about it. As you're a scientist and an educator, Plato's Garden. Plato was an Athenian philosopher during the classical period in ancient Greece, and he founded the Platonic school of thought in the academy, or academia, if you kind of make the connection there, Paul, of the word. It was the first institution of higher learning in the Western world. I'm doing a doctoral degree. I mentioned that to you, Paul, and part of what I'm experiencing as a businessman who's doing a doctoral degree is what we're calling critical thinking. If I ask you what critical thinking means, do you have a thought on that?
Oh, yeah. I think it's such the important thing to have, which is being able to parse information and critique whether you think it's reasonable or not.
Very cool. And we got the immersion scores on the screen there, so that's very interesting to me. Let's go back and bring that back on here. So there's 3 words: knowing, being, and doing, and we spend most of our time, Paul, like we're right now, we're doing. It's really the knowing and the being. So I want to flip to the next part of this. As I've learned it, criticality for the audience mainly seeking to facilitate a deeper engagement with their objects of knowledge. There's a quote from Plato. And being critical pulls different perspectives together, considering them in the light of various contexts, in the light of each other. And then there's this thing called 360-degree criticality. It's building awareness of self in relation to others, things like society, culture, ideas, and context. And finally, criticality can be seen as a critical quality, nature, or state. Now, why I bring this on the show now, Paul, is that the doctoral degree, I'm immersing myself in looking at my body of work. My podcast is part of that. But very rarely do I see guests come on the screen and they talk about how great they are, by the way, and their accolades, their accomplishments, their business. But we don't really always sense this critical thinking. So here's 3 questions that are on the screen, and we're going to dive into it. The influences of context. So we want to learn more and more about the deeper depth behind who the great Paul J. Zak is. We want to know who you are. There's 3 areas, Paul. There's the macro, which is what was happening in the world around you that influenced you as you got into doing some of your public work as an educator, creating the immersion app, things like that. The meso is really the industry with you and what was going on at the time that influenced your work. And the micro is getting down to you personally. What was happening in your life as you started diving into this area, this part of your work? And I would say that probably goes back, what, 20 years or so?
Yeah, 20 years, good. 20 years, right?
About 20 years. And so let me start with a picture to get your brain going. Who's that?
Boy, that is my mother. Before she was a mother, she was a Catholic nun. So, young lady.
That was your mom. So why don't we get into the question that I always like to start with, is talk about what was happening in your personal life when 20 years ago, when you decided that you've got to discover what you've discovered with this work on immersion. What was going on?
Uh, yeah, I mean, there's a dishonest answer and an honest answer, Tom. So which one do you want?
Bring them both.
The dishonest answer is that, we developed these technologies in the laboratory, and they seem to be sufficiently important that we wanted to bring them to society.
Yeah. Okay. What's the honest answer?
The honest answer is I'm a cheap bastard and neuroscience is expensive.
Okay.
When people show up with suitcases full of money and say, "Hey, we want you to work for us," I'd say, "Okay, that sounds exciting. Let's do it."
All right. So that's interesting. So when we talk about the picture I showed you there, that was your mom. And where did I find that? I found it on a TED Talk that you did. We're going to watch a minute of your TED Talk in just a moment. But what was it like growing up and being influenced? How did it shape you, or what did it influence in terms of who you are in the world?
Yeah, I mean, back to the notion of critical thinking, I think my mom was very black and white
Yeah.
in her thinking. It was either right or wrong. And even as a child, like everything is kind of gray, right? There are better and worse answers.
Yeah.
Um, and yet my father's an engineer and spent a lot of time building lots of stuff with him, only son. And so we would escape to the garage and build stuff. So I'm very interested in how do we create human happiness, but from a science perspective, not a philosophical or religious perspective. I think those are valuable and important, but that's not the area where I think I can make a contribution.
Yeah, that's very cool. And I want to go back and ask you about the meso, sort of your industry. So, what was going on in the industry? And I guess the big question is why did it matter? Why did you do what you did and discover, this work around immersion?
Yeah, part of it was, this open door policy in the lab meant that people brought their problems to us. Yeah, a bunch of smart people who have interest in human happiness, human behavior. And if I have to think of every experiment to run, I mean, I'm pretty creative. I can think of those. But when individuals bring in real problems that real people are having, then
Yeah.
your impact is much greater. And so I'm a very practical person, Tom. And so I really want to solve the biggest or most important problems as opposed to something that seems interesting or important to me. Why not talk to everybody possible?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what I'm finding is that when we start connecting the dots to what was happening in our careers and our lives at the time where we discovered or we started our public work, I can just share the story with you, Paul, that I come from the industry. I was a CEO for most of my career in executive building growing companies. And there was some shifts going on in the world at that time, the shift to the internet, the shift in the way people learn and are educated. Also, I had some things that were happening in my own life. My father left home when I was 12 years old, so I was kind of out on my own, and I had to go out and find people who I could, I guess, immerse with, and they could teach me how to navigate the world. And so I started thinking, when I pulled all that together, Paul, I started thinking about what am I going to do with all these things that happening in my life, and that's when I decided to turn in my life from an educator, from a CEO to an educator, to do things like podcasting and creating programs and coaching. And so it's interesting the shift that we heard you talk about, where you basically went out and you looked for creating, discovering this thing called oxytocin and discovering immersion. Let me just bring something else on the screen here and share it with the audience. So just stand by here for a minute, and let me just pull it up. So hold on there, Paul. All right, I'm gonna put up a cool little video. Do you see that there?
I don't.
Okay, let me add it to the screen. Now do you see it?
There we go.
Okay.
That guy also looks familiar.
All right, everybody. What we're doing now is we're looking at a video of a guy who did a TED Talk. That's you, Paul. I'm just going to play a moment off that TED Talk here. So let me just get down to my screen here and start it up. We're going to watch it for a minute or so, and then going to have you just tell us about it. What's it all about? So stand by here, Paul. All right, we're just trying to find it on the feed here. So stand by, Paul. I'm just going to remove that. So, Paul, just talk about what happened in that TED Talk. There was a moment there at the beginning, and we'll get that on the screen, where you were talking about oxytocin and the discovery that you made. Just bring us into that.
Yeah, as I said, much of my professional work has focused on how we understand the positive parts of human behavior, right? The negative parts are easy to study, fear, aggression. But what about all the helping behaviors we see? What about people doing things when nobody notices to help others? When we know those good behaviors or virtuous behaviors are what generally improve the quality of life. So as I began to look at this issue, particularly around trust, you want to try to run it, Tom?
Yeah, you just keep talking. I'm just we'll edit this part out. I'm just trying to find the actual feed on my screen here. So carry on.
Yeah. So we started looking at trust as a kind of key indicator of whether you would engage and cooperate with another person, and want to understand the neuroscience.
Is there anything unique about human beings? There is. We're the only creatures with fully developed moral sentiments. We're obsessed with morality as social creatures. We need to know why people are doing what they're doing. And I personally am obsessed with morality. It's all due to this woman, Sister Mary Maristella, also known as my mom. As an altar boy, I breathed in a lot of incense, and I learned to say phrases in Latin. But I also had time to think about whether my mother's top-down morality applied to everybody. I saw that people who were religious and non-religious were equally obsessed with morality. I thought maybe there's an earthly basis for moral decisions. But I wanted to go further than to say our brains make us moral. I want to know if there's a chemistry of morality. I want to know if there was a moral molecule. After 10 years of experiments, I found it. Oh, would you like to see it? I brought some with me.
That's my favorite part.
This little syringe contains the moral molecule.
I don't know if you can actually experience the sound there of that liquid coming out.
It's called oxytocin.
So, Paul, I'm going to remove that. I'm just going to remove that and pause that off the screen, so just stand by.
Allowed for toleration of burrow mates. But in humans, was only known to facilitate birth and breastfeeding in women and is released by both sexes during sex. So I had this idea that oxytocin might be the moral molecule. I did what most of us do. I tried it out on some colleagues.
All right, Paul, take us into that moment. That was in Scotland, and tell us more about what was going on there.
Yeah, so it really is a good question, right? That question that goes back to Garden of Eden, the nature of good and evil. So, the simplistic view of morality is some people are bad, some people are good, but that's really simplistic, right? There are good people that do bad things all the time, and there are bad people that occasionally do good things. And so, how do we find the inflection point between the kind of good and evil? And based on a bunch of animal literature, I developed a protocol to measure this brain chemical oxytocin in humans. Just practiced, made it up, read all the literature, and started running experiments, and indeed found that a whole variety of what we call pro-social behaviors, helping behaviors, cooperative behaviors were profoundly influenced by oxytocin. And we not only measured that, we did this using rapid blood draws, but we developed a way to shoot synthetic oxytocin in the brain through the nose, and hence that syringe you saw. And we can prove that oxytocin improved these pro-social or moral behaviors. So moral, just for the group, again, there's no philosophical, religious association with moral. Moral generally means helping behaviors, pro-social behaviors, stuff we would decide as good, and antisocial behaviors are selfish behaviors. I'm taking from you. I'm doing something for myself. I'm stealing, right? So that's the sense in which I'm using the word moral.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so, Paul, you wrote that book, Immersion. Do you have a copy of it with you there?
I just might, yeah.
Yeah.
So I wrote a 2012 book called The Moral Molecule, and this is my third book called Immersion.
And tell us about the tagline on there. What are you talking about when it says the science of the extraordinary and the source of happiness?
Right. So based on the literature on oxytocin and the research we did in the early 2000s, as we continue to understand what creates value for people's lives, one question was, as I mentioned earlier, how do we create a way to measure whether you're getting sufficient neurologic value and whether the experiences we're having are frustrating or mundane or extraordinary? And so in doing this work funded by the US government, we measured multiple signals in the brain, combined them into an overall measure that I've called immersion, which appears to be the brain's valuation mechanism for experiences with social, emotional content. So, Tom, if I wasn't looking at you and I was drinking my glass of water, no increase in immersion. There's not, there's no social, emotional component there. But now we're having this conversation. Look, immersion is really high now, 95, 94, right? So we've created this platform so that anybody can measure using our software what the brain loves in real time. Again, the magic is pulling these data from smartwatches and fitness wearables. And that seems to be really important. And the punchline of the book, the happiness part, just to finish the thought, is if you can build your life by having enough extraordinary experiences, these peak immersion moments, then you actually can live happier, healthier, and longer. And that's what you're doing right now, Tom, is you are actually having, a much more powerful experience than I have and than I am. So I have to seek out other things that give me more value. But you're getting it from interacting with people on your podcast, which is amazing.
Yeah. And again, just tell us what we're seeing on the screen there for those who have just joined us. You see the numbers. It's actually explaining the connection through, I'm monitoring through my, I'm connected through my watch, right? So you can see that there.
Right. So it's measuring Tom and I's brain activity in real time for this neurologic state I've called immersion, which captures the value we're getting second by second from chatting with each other and sharing that, I guess, with the world, Tom, right? So
exactly. So would it be fair to say that when you're on podcasts, we talk about media interviewing, let's talk about storytelling. So a lot of what your work is based on is a concept of narrative and storytelling. So talk about that and how that kind of plays into what you're doing with immersion here. Why does it matter?
So as we looked at ways to not only create peak immersion moments, but sustain immersion is metabolically costly, and the brain wants to get back to baseline. So when we see this immersion state, this peak immersion, the brain is investing a lot of resources in this experience. So the obvious question is, well, how do I sustain long-term peak immersion moments? And we looked at all kinds of stimuli, recorded live in person. And the most effective way to sustain neurologic immersion is by using a narrative arc. So that is storytelling. I introduce characters, I put them in an environment, I create some kind of conflict or tension and see how they resolve that conflict or tension, usually through some emotional state. So they go through some emotional turmoil to resolve this issue. And as social creatures, we are fascinated by the other humans, as I said in my TED Talk. And storytelling is a way to communicate what other humans are doing that could be valuable to ourselves.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. And back to the book, Extraordinary Experiences. One of the things I love about the way the book is created or written, the format, and we're going to be rolling out a 5-star review for you later on the show. I'll just show you that. I've read through it, and I've read through it twice. I've got all these sticky marks noted throughout. And creating extraordinary what I'm thinking about is the whole storytelling narrative of what you said of protagonist, and then an antagonist appears, and there's some kind of danger, and oxytocin. What exactly is happening when oxytocin is released in the brain? What is happening between us at that moment, in those moments?
Right. So I'm going to change that question a little bit, Tom, and say, what is immersion? How is immersion related to oxytocin? So the
Okay.
core drivers of immersion
Yeah.
are first, an intentional response associated with a neurochemical called dopamine. And the second is emotional resonance, which is associated with oxytocin release. So dopamine and oxytocin have this interesting dance they do that induces electrical activity in the brain that we can capture from our platform. And so immersion captures the emotional value of that experience, right? Value, as I said earlier, is largely emotional. And so storytelling is a way to transport myself into another world, in a story world. Could be fiction, could be nonfiction. But when we do that well, our brain goes, oh, this is valuable. I'm a social creature. Now I see a movie, read a novel, read a nonfiction book that tells me about what humans are doing in a particular situation. That could be valuable to me. So if I can structure that well and deliver it well, then I'll have high immersion. So just to summarize, I've left out one component, but how you structure the content and how you deliver the content affect the immersion. The third component I left out is the audience, is the viewer, reader, are they ready to receive that information? So we create another measure called psychological safety. And if that individual cannot actually, has the bandwidth, is comfortable enough to achieve psychological safety, then they're worried about having to eat or go to the bathroom or what's happening in the noise downstairs, and they're not going to be able to actually have an immersive experience. They just have their bandwidth is devoted to other things.
Yeah, totally. I mean, coming from my experience working in rooms with teams, that psychological safety is a big piece of it. We're going to have a special guest on later in the show, Dr. Elvis Einstein. You're going to meet him for the first time, and I think he's going to talk through that with you about psychological safety, and particularly using what you've created here to creating high performance teams. Let's take a look at what's going on. Have you got that? We can edit this out, but have you got that going there?
The immersion?
Yeah. Maybe I'll just remove that as your...
So yeah, it looks like it started at a different time. So we're going to restart another one, Tom,
Okay.
if you want to just
Okay.
put it on your watch.
Yeah, no problem. So I'm just going to, everybody, what's happening here, you can see in the studio. So Paul's got me wired up. So through my watch, I'm going to find the immersion app, and we'll tell you how you can find that and get a hold of these tools.
Yeah, we're going to give you some free tools to use at the end of the show.
Okay,
So
right
Tom,
now
in the private chat, I put the code in, and we'll just start measuring again.
Okay, so what I'm doing now is I'm going back to the, we'll edit all this out of the final. So I'm going back to the, let me see if I can show everybody this. So you see on my phone, it's asking me to put in the code, and Paul sent me a code. So I'm going to put that code in. So it's GHBP BJP GHBJP. Okay, so now I'm hitting a button there, and if you may not be able to see exactly, but I'm holding my phone up on the other camera. We're now connecting. And just tell me if I'm connected yet. I'm going to put the dashboard up. This is what Paul's seeing. This is real time from Paul's desktop from the Immersion app. Looks like we're going again.
Looks like we're going.
All right, that's very cool.
Yeah.
So
that's how fast it is, how easy it is to start a new data collection.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm gonna do a little commercial here. We actually had your team put together a special offer. So I'm going to put this on the screen, Paul, just for having it in the production. So in the top right corner there, you can see that there is a QR code. And so, Paul, this QR code your team sent me, people can go to that QR code, go to the website, and I think it's going to give them a 20% discount on the actual. It's an offer, so they're going to be able to go there. And how does this connect to the Tuesday app? Is this something? connected? Something different?
Right. So this is our free consumer product, which is called Tuesday, so that every day can be the best Tuesday of the week.
Yeah.
And this is an app that uses these data to help you build emotional fitness. So it is the ability to have enough social emotional experiences every day, every week, every month, so
Yeah.
that you feel that sense of social connection that builds up our buffering against the bad things that happen in life. And in particular, it is gamified. So you get to level up so that you've got that support system built around you. So we've shown in published research that if you don't have enough social emotional experiences, enough immersion in your life, then you express what looks like depressive symptoms. You have low mood and low energy. And so by having a way to measure that and go, hey, you know what? I should call a friend, or I should play with a dog. The brain's very, as you know, Tom, very blunt. I
Yeah.
get social emotional experiences from being in a 2D situation with you. I can play with my dog. I can watch a movie. I can call a friend. I can go to happy hour. All those are going to be potentially high immersion experiences.
Yeah, think about the implications of that, everybody. And particularly what I'm blown away with is we're actually seeing live how Paul and I are connecting. And what I don't know, Paul, throw something out of me. If you're a podcast producer and you're looking to edit your podcast and send it out to the world, it's pretty cool to have a tool like this for me to be able to see, here are the moments where Paul and I had the highest level of immersion. And as I'm doing my editing, being able to make sure those moments are included. What do you think about that?
Yeah, it's super fun. I mean, we have, ad agencies, publicly like Ogilvy and organizational transformation experts like Accenture very publicly has been using our platform for years to create better experiences for individuals, for employees, for the content they produce. So yeah, why not do it for podcasting as well?
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. So we're going to move out of the screen. You also have the book out in an audio book format as well. That's come out, and I've listened to the audiobook. Paul, talk to us while I pull this up. I'm going to pull up the audiobook and just play a little segment from it and have you talk about it. Talk about the performance of teams. You're doing a lot of work with organizations with this app. People are watching this are in leadership roles. How can this help, or what would they do with this, and what are we trying to solve in the organizations where we're measuring immersion?
Right. So that sense of social connection is a great buffer against burnout at work. So
Yeah.
some recent research from the U.S. Surgeon General showed that around 75% of employees say they are burnout at least once a month at work.
Wow.
So how do we do that? We've got to create compelling workplaces. And if I ask you in a survey, are you burnout? I mean, what does that mean? Again, it's not my favorite word because it's just too squishy. But if I can
Yeah.
see if your brain's getting the value of working, and that value is the task I'm doing and the people I'm doing it with, then I go, okay, this is a buffer against burnout. The people are really putting in their best and highest effort into creating value for the organization, which gives them satisfaction. So there's a very strong relationship, Tom, between immersion and satisfaction in life. So if I'm not immersed, if I'm checked out, if I'm burnout, or my psychological safety is so low because I'm in a conflictual, toxic environment,
Yeah.
that is fixable from a leadership perspective with these data. The data are anonymized. You don't know which person you're talking about, but you will see which which departments, which locations are thriving and not thriving. And you can create interventions and know with an objective ROI whether I've actually changed and improved that environment, which is allowing the people to flourish or not.
That's very awesome. I just threw up on the screen here while you were talking because one of my passions is mental health, and particularly having gone through a brain injury in 2018, and I've had to move through depression and things like anxiety. But I'm an advocate for this area, particularly in leadership. Look at what's on the screen there, Paul. You've got a lot more statistics than I do, I'm sure, in your research. But this is from the World Health Organization, and I mean, some of the things that might affect mental health. Look at what's on the list there. For those who are listening to the podcast, any insights or thoughts?
Tom, I can't read that. The font's too small for me on my screen, but
Okay.
we do see an increase in loneliness. We see smaller families.
Yeah.
And so, the basically four things people can control, thank you, that, substantially improve your health span: diet, exercise, sleep, And then the fourth is the richness of your social network. So the first three are easy to measure. The Tuesday app, for which you put up the QR code earlier,
Yeah.
allows you to quantify objectively if you have a rich enough social emotional life. If you don't, well, you have goals. Just like we have, 10,000 steps. Now we have a goal on the Tuesday app to build up my social emotional fitness. And maybe that's, again, take my wife to dinner. It's phone a friend. Tom, you're older like me, and it's so nice when you have a friend that you've known for, 30 years, 40 years, and they call you up and like, hey, Tom, I love you. And like, I love you too, buddy, man. It's so nice. Like the privilege of having people that have known you for 30 or 40 years, that's an amazing thing. And that's that kind of emotional fitness I'm talking about, where I have this set of individuals that deeply care about me. And that's amazing. I got, I don't know, a dozen people texting me today, wish me happy birthday. And how wonderful is that? People actually care about me. Surprisingly, I know, because you've been talking to me for half an hour, and it's amazing we can still have something to say.
Somebody just said, happy birthday, Dr. Zach. There it is from the Master of Storytelling. I got another comment I'm going to put up on the screen just in relation to what you just said. Maybe you read that one out loud for us, get you immersed.
Oh, this is one from my friends and colleagues. We spend so much of our time at work, it totally makes sense that all the things on that list contribute to mental health. Yeah, so part of this, thank you, Laura, part of this is training ourselves at work to be better humans, better colleagues, better teammates, more cooperative. Work is all about service. Ultimately, it's about service to our colleagues and service to our customers. So if I get good at that at work, I carry it out to home. So as you know, Tom, I had an HBR article on trust a couple of years ago, and we showed using representative data from the United States that when you work in a cooperative, happy, compelling workplace, satisfied workplace, your personal life is better. You take fewer sick days. You're more satisfied with your life outside of work. You're a better parent, better spouse, better citizen. So there's a huge win-win space here, but what's missing is measurement, and that's what we're bringing to the table.
No, I think it's a breakthrough. I mean, it really is. And everybody, Paul, hold up your book again there and let everybody take a quick look at where with the author.
On the Amazon for not that much money.
There it is. Immersion, the Science of the Extraordinary and the Source of Happiness, Paul Joseph, Zach. This is a great book for everybody. And here's where I want to do a shout out for most authors. Our work's not known until you go and read it. And I'm going to ask you to post a review for Paul's book on Amazon, places like goodreads.com. Give it a high rating if you like it. Paul, getting back into the book, I'm going to pull up the audiobook now, but just talk at us. Why did you write the book, and tell us about how that came together?
That's a good question. For some reason, I have this crazy idea because I spend so much time working with individuals and organizations that there could be more value in just the people I can work with or just the subscribers to the Immersion platform, that maybe there's more general impact I can have in the world. And so you can read the book and learn what we have learned from measuring over 50,000 brains and apply it to your work life, your daily life. And so there's no sense in which you need to buy the software to get value from the book. The book really derives a lot of practical, useful lessons, how to create better marketing, better entertainment, better employee experiences, live a happier life by finding out or measuring the brain activity from many, many people.
Yeah, I've just pulled up on the screen there. Audiobooks are fun. I assume you travel a lot. Are you into the audiobooks yourself?
Love the audiobooks. I think I'm up to 850 on Audible now. So love them.
Very cool. Hey, while we're going to cue that up here, everybody, we're just bringing in the audiobook. I just got another question that came up. I'm going to throw it on the screen, Paul. The question is, has the connection issue increased since more people are working remotely or in a hybrid environment? That's from Master Storytelling out in Utah.
Yeah, it's a great question. What we find even pre-COVID lockdowns is that the neurologic value of interactions online versus in person, the online is between 50 and 80% of what we get in person on average. So again, you saw the data from me and Tom, we're having a ball talking to each other, right? So Tom and I have gotten to know each other over the last, 6-8 months, Tom, and we've had amazing conversations. All of those remote, we've never met in person. Eventually we will meet in person. It'll be awesome when we do. But in any case, the remote reduces some of the bandwidth that we get from interacting with other people, but at the same time, it allows us to have more autonomy from a work perspective. So hybrid's not terrible. I think you need to see the humans in person, sometimes. So I think, going in the office a couple days a week probably is the optimal amount. But full hybrid, full remote workers are fine too.
Yeah, that's great. Let's see if we can. We'll 3, 2, 1 and start. Cue this up. Tell me, Paul, with a thumbs up when I started, if you can hear the audio. So let me also just see if you're still tracking us on your immersion. Perfect.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm going to add to the stage here. Everybody, again, we're live in studio with Dr. Paul J. Zak, and he's written the book Immersion and he co-founded the company Immersion, and it's fascinating stuff. And what we're going to do is take segments of this interview. We're going to measure it against the results that he's tracking. And I'm trying to figure out what are some of the points where he and I are highly immersed in this conversation, meaning that maybe the audience that are watching this will be following us the same. Let's just play this, so only for about a minute, the audiobook, and then we'll have you talk about what you hear here. Just stand by, Paul, while I cue this up. Tell us about the experience of going in a studio or however you did this. What was it like recording an audiobook?
I recorded my first book, The Moral Molecule. This one actually had a wonderful professional voice actor named Rich Miller who actually did it. So much better than me, right? He's a trained, voice performer. So yeah, it's even better. Recording your own book is awful. The first one was just painful, and I think it came out okay, but it wasn't a fun experience.
Yeah, being a fellow author, and I love your book, man. When I did my first book, audio, I didn't like my voice, and there were multiple characters, so I did do the voice actor thing. But I think one of the things that I'm hearing from you is you have a very nice, deep voice that I find that people who also do books and record their voice, the audience gets to know you. They get to go, there's that guy, and sometimes maybe I go to sleep on my pillow. My wife might not like it, but I'm listening to this guy, and I'm going, it's Paul. So let's play a little bit of this, and then let you talk about it. Here, tell me if you can hear this out.
I interrogate terrorists for a living, and I need that stuff tomorrow. At 6 feet 4 inches, it is rare for me to be nose to nose with anyone, and Ron Wilson was not only my height, but also had 30 pounds on me.
Look at the immersion.
What the heck's going on? How's the book start that way? That's a real teaser to keep reading the book.
The intelligence officer standing before me made it perfectly clear. The CIA needed to get information from terrorists subjected to extraordinary rendition about...
All right, I'm gonna try to stop that audio, but just stand by there, Paul, while I figure that out.
Sure.
Just give me... we're getting a free listen and tour of your book. There it is. One of the things I love about the book, Paul, is that you've written it in a style of storytelling, narrative. And tell me what you think, but when I saw the emergence score go up there, it's something that I think people love to read books that are written in the style of narrative. And so that beginning, provocative opening in your book, you're talking about immersion. And so is that really how you chose to write the book, for that reason, to have people read it, to highly immerse, to have people remember what you've said? Because I think it's fairly effective.
Right. So, I have to believe my own science, right? So if I want to keep you sustained in that book, if I want to make it valuable to you, then storytelling is the effective way to do that. Even though it's based on science, it's really science light. It's not, there's no tables, there's no charts, there's no statistical tests. It's using the science to draw implications for people's actual lives.
Yeah, it's awesome. I read a book by Patrick Lencioni a long time ago. I have difficulty reading because words kind of move on the page a bit for me. And Lencioni, I don't know if you've heard some of his work, 5 Temptations of a CEO, things like that. I remember reading his book, and I just went through it in one sitting. And that's what I think everybody, I recommend to get this book, put it on your library as a reference. It's a very great book to read, but it's full of stories. I like some of the stories you tell. There's one in there where you talk about how you watched a movie, La La Land, and you actually found yourself kind of tearing up. And that had me very immersed, obviously, wondering what was going on with Paul. You see what's going on with the scores there, Paul? Just tell us a little bit of play-by-play.
Yeah, so you'll see these sort of peaks and valleys. So as I said earlier, immersion is metabolically costly. You're never going to be at 100 the whole time. Your brain just can't handle that. And so we know that from long-term form storytelling, right, Tom, that we want to modulate that emotional tension. Otherwise, it's just exhausting. So when you see a big peak like we're having now, big green, high numbers, we're going to be following that with a trough. And now we see that trough coming in. So it's really a way to drill down on how to create a really valuable experience overall, but in particular to have high immersion moments, which are the most memorable parts of an experience. Make sure that the most important information you want to convey happens at an immersion peak. So again, storytelling, great way to do that, using video. Tom, you've been great about using multimedia. That's a great way to keep the brain kicking in, like, oh, something new's happening. All right, I'm back in.
Yeah, thank you, Paul. And I'm going to put back on the screen here just the other cameras so people can see in the studio. I've got the book here. One of the things I like about how you've created this book is not only everyone does it have storytelling, and Paul is, for example, a chapter might be about education and training, effective education and training. Chapter 4, education and training sticks. Love the title. But then there's stories. And at the end, if you can just take a look at my book here, I've got highlights. You leave us with 5 takeaways. And this is what I really like. So it's a great reference book, everyone, where you can go back. You say, okay, education, I'm an educator, I'm teaching in the classroom, I'm holding a meeting with my team. These are 5 keys. So very, very well organized. Love how that's written. Let's see what's happening on the scores. All right, so everybody, I'm flashing this up. We're going to edit this in and out, but it's really for the effect of where the final production will be. We're looking at, as we're talking, we're immersed in a conversation, and Paul's monitoring live how we're connected. It's pretty cool. It's actually making me nervous.
It's all unconscious, right? So just for readers, again, this is well out of conscious control. So it's coming out of the deep old evolutionary parts of the brain. So either it's a great experience or it's not, and that's why neuronal activity is uniform across individuals. So if I'm seeing this big metabolic investment I've called immersion, it means it's really valuable to that organism. And of course, it'll vary across individuals, but it's a unique way rather than relying on surveys that have lots of biases to really assess how we create extraordinary experiences for others.
That's awesome. Everybody, just to check in with where we're at with the podcast, we've covered a lot today. We have a couple more segments. And again, we're live with Paul J. Zak, and he's created Immersion and the book Immersion. Today, we're taking on a journey, and we're actually may seem a little scattered, but we're recording different segments. I'm using different methods to see how high the immersion is. So you've seen us do an opening introduction with a powerful video that looks like you're in the Star Wars theater. We've talked a bit about mental health. Paul's talked about the book Immersion, and we're talking about things like psychological safety and high performance in the workplace. The TED Talk that you did, really interested in the power of TED Talks. So in reading your book, I'm just going to read this and have you just riff on it and tell me a bit more. But in chapter 6, it talks about TED, something about, I think, TED rules and what makes a TED Talk viral, and especially using the concepts of, a TED speaker trying to immerse their audience. What are some of the key things that you recommend they do?
Yeah, I think part of it is so I've been at bazillions of TEDs. One big TED Talk, and I think 4 or 5 TEDx's. So I've got a lot of experience, but I'm terrible to go with, Tom. You don't want to go with me because I'll just critique everybody because I've thought too much about it and measured a lot of it. So the first is don't bury the lead. So a lot of TED Talks are chronological.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, I did this, and then start with the lead, right? So again, you want that brain to really kick in. So start with the most important part, and then backfill with the rest of the story. Put in breadcrumbs like good storytelling. Don't, you're going to lead. Think of a James Bond movie, right? They all start with James Bond, running across a rooftop with bullets flying at his feet, and he saves some damsel in distress, right? That's a hot open, right? So open hot, and then start to fill in the story so that we learn about it, keep them engaged. One of the TED commandments is to show authentic emotion from stage. So that's what we want in good storytelling is real emotion. So if it was a powerful experience, relate that powerful experience. Don't just talk about it, but Make sure you're relating in a way that's sufficiently emotional. And then I think the best TED Talks have a real call to action.
Yeah.
And so, think about, the E in TED is for entertainment. So I want to be entertaining for sure, right? There's a public experience, but I also want to learn something. At the end, what can I do with it? So just like in my book, where every chapter has 5 kind of key bullet points, think of having just one bullet point, 2 at the most, but not more than 2. Once you've heard my TED Talk, what do I do?
Yeah. Thank you for that. And everybody, you can apply, thinking out loud here, you can apply what Paul's taught us or teaching us, not only on screen here, but in the book. If you're a leader and you're delivering a message, or you're making a presentation about a change in strategy, or you're standing in front of a room and the company's not doing well, turn your message into a story. Turn it into a story and highly immerse the audience. And by the way, Paul, storytelling isn't easy to do, is it? It's actually something, I think it's a learned skill. You have to practice it. You have to learn it, correct?
For sure, right. I mean, there are structural components you can read about, but ultimately, you've got to try that story out on humans and see if it relates. You may think it's great yourself. That's not the question to ask, right? The question is, for an audience, for a listener, does it create sufficient value? So we have a lot of people in the marketing advertising space who use immersion every day to tell better stories, right? These are stories that seek to influence your behavior, sell your product. Again, there's no brainwashing here, right? So you still have a big prefrontal cortex. You can say no to anything. But if I'm going to tell a story, I should tell it as well as possible for other people, not just for me.
Absolutely. We were talking once before, and I think it came between us where I said that the more I learn about Paul's Zak story, the more I know about myself. Tell me about, when I say that, what that means to you.
Yeah, it's such a beautiful thing, Tom. Thank you for saying that. Some people have argued, scholars have argued, that there is just one story. And it's the story of life. It's the story of us.
Yeah.
And so if I experience someone else's story, I get insights into my own story, my own path of life, and provide meaning into that story. And for whatever reason, sometimes it's easier to find that meaning in someone else's life story than our own, because we're living our own life. So we don't often reflect on it. So I love what you said. I think it's totally true.
Yeah, I think it's powerful. I'm going to read you something out of a book that I've actually just started reading, called The Ecological Thought. You might know Timothy Morton, or know of Harvard University Press. And Tim is a professor of literature and environment at the University of California, Davis. And the reason why I'm just sharing this with you is just a passage in here that relates to what we're just talking about this learning through others and their stories. And it makes me sometimes frustrated, Paul, with some of the leaders I've worked for, leaders that they just can't. It's all business. They just can't seem to stop and be vulnerable or tell their story. Get deeper into talk to us about who you are. Bring us into that moment into your life. I'm just going to read this to you. As anyone who has a long-term partner can attest, you're married, correct?
Yeah.
How many years have you been married?
27, I guess.
Wow. Man, that's amazing, because I'm 28. I made 28 as of January this year. So
we're twins.
As anyone who has a long-term partner can attest, the strangest person is the one you wake up with every morning. Far from gradually erasing strangeness, intimacy heightens it. The more we know them, the stranger they become. Intimacy itself is strange. As a passenger side view mirror on your car reads, objects in the mirror are closer than they appear. We ignore the mesh, or this interconnectedness between the things we're so familiar with. It. Our familiarity forms the basis of the threatening intimacy that we too often push to the back of our minds. Thought-provoking quote.
Yeah. I mean, it is hard to get out of our own heads, right? I think that's one of the, I think Plato said, the unexamined life is not worth living. And yet we seldom take the time to examine our own lives. We're so busy just living. And so for some reason, examining someone else's life, sometimes through fiction, is a way to get insights into our own lives. And you talked about, watching La La Land with my daughter. At the end, if you've seen the movie, it's very, very sad, poignant.
Yeah.
we both were kind of tearing up at the movie theater. And then I watched it again at home a couple months later by myself and cried at the end anyway. Like, I already knew the ending. Why? Because it was really an authentic emotional state that I could relate to about, in this case, kind of missing the love of your life, just not being able to connect to that person. And many of us have had that experience, and it's really beautiful. Now, did it cause me to, I don't know, reevaluate my life? Not really, but I certainly could relate to the experience on screen in a way that if we just talked about it, wouldn't be
Yeah.
as powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. I just flashed up on the screen there again. We're being monitored with live with the immersion tool. Look at the score that's happening there, Paul. Just
Yeah, look at
flipped up.
that.
Well, the questions I have in my mind is what I'm looking for here, everyone, using what Paul's technology is as a host, is what are those moments in the conversation? And I did that for a reason. I had Paul tell us a little bit of a story. I brought him into a space that was more vulnerable. And it did something to me. I could see that the connection changed, which to me is really what we're doing today. As we move to the last segment of the interview today, and Paul, I want to say I'm so blessed to have you sharing this technology and letting us look at how powerful some of these conversations are. There's a question I've always had is about when is too much too much? How long should an interview be? How long should a podcast be? And tell me what you think about this. If you're with someone, even if it's for an hour, if you're having fun, if you're highly immersed, if you're connected, length doesn't matter, or does it?
I mean, life always matters at some level.
Sorry, Paul, I misspoke. Length of the conversation or the actual interview.
Oh, length.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So what Accenture's found using our platform is that after 20 minutes, without a change in the kind of way we're conveying information, that people cannot stay immersed for more than 20 minutes. And so I think what you've done, Tom, is really smart, which is break up what we're doing. It's not just a conversation, but you're showing audio, you're showing video, you're showing the data, right? That keeps the brain really engaged. And so, yeah, from a storytelling perspective, I think it's shorter, higher impact, higher immersion, take a break for recovery, and then hit it again.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so you've been great because we'll be just over an hour today, and that's a long time. And most of the people I have on my show, there's the ones where we just get on and we riff and we're storytelling. There's no structure. An hour goes by and they go, "Oh my God, I can't believe that we spent an hour."
Right.
Do you experience that too? I'm sure. And
Oh yeah, it's so much fun, right? And that's when you kind of know. So there is people have asked, is immersion the same thing as flow? So flow is this idea discovered by my former colleague Mike Csikszentmihalyi. It's kind of state where you lose track of time and you really enjoy it. But flow is a self-report measure. It has to be based on an active task like writing or painting. But immersion is a neurologic state. It's happening. You can watch a movie and be highly immersed. So I think they're related, but they're just different concepts, not self-reports coming out of your brain. But there is a relationship there.
That's awesome. All right, now we're going to move to honoring you. We've got something that we want to reveal here, and so I'm going to just cue this up, everyone. So 3, 2, 1. I've written a review for your book, Paul. We're going to be posting this on Amazon and Goodreads. And everybody, Paul, hold up your book again there. The title, read it out loud, the title to us.
Yeah, Immersion, the Science of the Extraordinary and the Source of Happiness.
Okay,
That's
awesome. Awesome. And by the way, Robert Downey Jr., I follow his feed sometimes. He just put a post up. He and somebody co-founded a company called Happy. And of course, I look deeper into that. And it's a coffee company. And I'm thinking okay, where's the science behind that? Are you really happy if you drink coffee and then your receptors don't, something doesn't work in your brain where you can't sleep? I don't know. We'll have to bring him on and talk to him about it. So I'm going to put this up on screen here, and there it is. I'm revealing to you a 5-star Amazon review. We're not going to read it out loud here for the sake of time, but congratulations. It's a great book.
Thank you.
And you'll see everything I said and I've been talking about today about the way the book is structured, about the storytelling, about the takeaways, and how it's really a resource tool you can put on your shelf. Highly recommend it. So congratulations to you on that, Paul.
Thank you so much, Tom. What an honor to be on with you. And I've been on hundreds and hundreds of podcasts, and none of them has been as interesting as this one because you prepared so many things. You were organized. It was an amazing experience. So I'm such a fan.
All right. And well, now that you've got me blushing, and we'll have to get the report so I can see, okay, what did it do to me? Look at
Look
that.
at that. Spiking.
All right. But everybody, this is true to what I'm trying to do with the show that we have here, is that really trying to get people deeper into those emotional connections. And many podcasters, if you're out there, I love you all, but you'll have scripted questions and you'll send it to the guests, and you'll question 1, talk, question 2, talk. So Paul, we have another honor that we want to do, and I'm going to put up another camera here. We'll edit out all the extra stuff so it looks pretty when we produce it. So you're getting an award today. I don't know if you knew this, but here we go. Let me just put on my...
You spoke to the Nobel Committee? How did you do that?
Yeah, it's bigger. It's bigger. All right, when I started the show, it was built on the storytelling narrative of Joe Campbell. I said, I want people, leaders, notable people, average, ordinary people, to come and just tell their stories. But people who have turned something in their life, like Paul, in service, to create something, make a dent in the world. And so we created this challenge coin. Do you know what challenge coins are? I'm sure
I
you
do. Yeah, I've done a lot of work with the military. Yep.
Yeah.
You can explain it.
Challenge coins are created, I think it was World War I or II, and it comes with a little card, so it'll tell you about that. But they were created to connect community. So soldiers would carry them in their pockets, and if, hey, you didn't have yours, you bought drinks at the officers' mess. They're used all over the world today, as Paul, you just mentioned, things like first responders, community groups. Alcoholics Anonymous has their own version of coins, and my father was in Alcoholics Anonymous for most of his life, and he passed away a few years ago. The front of the coin, it's hand-painted and minted, is the Quiet Warrior Show, raised letters, but look at the back. It's the actual image of the hero's journey narrative.
Oh, wow.
Look how intricate that is, right out of Campbell's work. Isn't that amazing?
Beautiful.
A little known fact that I can share, if I was with you in person, I'd wear a tank top. I actually have that tattooed on my left shoulder. I did it when I was a CEO, and I put it there because I was afraid of what people might say. Today, I'm on stage talking, and I say, the hero's journey is not just in me, it's on me. So we want to welcome you to the Quiet Warrior Tribe. You're officially being inducted, and this award will come to you. There's only maybe 30 or 40 a year that go out, and we have 260 Quiet Warriors around the globe now. So welcome to the tribe.
Thank you so much, Tom.
All right. Now I want to do one more section, and I know I've blown the time here. So are you going to be able to give me another 5 minutes?
Sure.
You good?
For you, anything.
All right. Well, I'm blushing. So everybody, it is Paul's birthday. So if you're, I still see a couple people on the screen here, which is quite remarkable because when you live stream, you don't catch a lot of people live. It's usually when we do the feature release. So I'm going to remove that. Paul, I'm going to give you a gift here. I'm going to full screen you while I go and see if I can find Dr. Elvis Einstein. So everybody, we're bringing on, he is one of my researchers. He's my pal. I work with him closely in my company, Create. And he's particularly interested in something you wrote in your book about dogs at work, bringing dogs at work in that whole healthy workplace. I don't know why. I just said to me, he says, I want to get on the show. And I said, you can. He said, well, look, just put me on there. So, but if you had a few minutes just to talk and riff at people, this is where I get to maybe break the immersion score. But I'm going to put you on the spot and just full screen. You just talk at us. We'll capture on the tape anything you want about anything. Teach us something, and I'll get Doc Einstein. I'll probably be back in about 2 or 3 minutes. How's that?
That sounds great.
All right, so I'm just going to full screen you here, and when I come back, I'll interrupt you. So there you go.
So I'm going to talk about, I think, the most important thing you can do to extend your health span, that is to live longer, happier, and healthier. And diet, exercise, sleep, I mentioned that before. The third, the richness of social connections, or the fourth of those, ultimately is about service to others. So we've shown in published research that individuals who are in professions that serve others, people who volunteer, people who donate time or money, have different neurologic responses to other individuals. They are more likely to help, but they have brain responses that make them better social creatures. They have stronger emotional responses to other individuals. And as I said about Tom, he's a very warm person, and warm people are others that people want to be around. And so if you look at the science of longevity, one of the most important parts of that is love. So, right, if you have people you love, if you give love to other people, you can extend your health span. And so the paradox here is, even for people who are the most selfish individuals who want to live longer and healthier, they've got to be of service to other people. And that's part of our deep social nature, that we only thrive when we're around others. So what's the takeaway? Find one person a day to do something nice for. It's easy, right? Some years ago, I started talking to people in elevators. It's really weird to me from a science perspective that we have humans in a small box who pretend like the other humans aren't there. I know you're there. I can see you. You can see me. So we start talking to people in elevators and had the most interesting, fun conversations. Occasionally people are freaked out, which is also sort of funny. And, oh, hi, how's it going? Where are you coming in from? Like at a hotel or a conference center or something. So, it doesn't take a lot to connect to others. And so when you have that connection, it's valuable to them, but also valuable to you. You get better at it. So for people who have some difficulty doing that, join a group, volunteer to pull weeds or clear trails or whatever. And it's amazing when I've done things like that, how many people will come up and talk to you and thank you. And, hey, you're volunteering to make our environment a better place. It's so nice. What's your name? Oh, great. So you end up meeting people who, also like you, want to make the world a better place. And I think having that opportunity is an amazing thing. And so we shouldn't squander that opportunity. We should really use it. And the QR code that Tom put up earlier, that has the free download for our emotional fitness app called Tuesday, is a way to assess whether you are getting enough social interactions to maintain your emotional fitness. There's just a explosion of mental health disorders, and part of that's driven by isolation. The people who don't have the person they can call when they're feeling down, or person they can call when they have something exciting happen to them. And so we need those people, and you can cultivate them. Look, there's the QR code. Thank you, Tom, or the elves who pulled that up. So it's free currently for iPhone only. We're building the next version with iPhone and Android now. So in a couple of months, if it's free, why not at least try it, right? If it'll make you healthier and happier, make you a nicer human being, what could be better than that?
Hey.
There he is, Elvis Einstein, the famous scientist.
Hey, how you doing? Good to meet you, Dr. Zach. So, that guy, Tom Dutta, like Butta, we work together. We were over here in the lab, and I always said to him, I said, I want to get back on the screen. He doesn't let me in the studio. He just sort of sits here like he's in control. He says, get over there and do all the research. And I said, well, okay. So I'm really the brains behind what we're doing here. I heard it was your birthday today. Happy birthday, Paul Zakatakalaka. By the way, you look kind of young there. How old are you? Well, you don't have to answer that. But, I got to tell you that my wife there, my Italian wife, Anna, she puts olive oil on her face every night. Can you imagine? I mean, she comes in the bed there. Sometimes I just want to pour gin on her and drink her up. But, no, I just wanted to talk to you for a few minutes. Tom said I can do this part about, there's a chapter in your book that talks about, I think it's chapter 4 or 5 or 25 or 3.2. I know I lost all track there. Shiny objects, just my head doesn't stay. But I'm wired up too. He's got me on that thing, immersion thing you got.
Yeah.
Your track tribe. But I got two questions. One is, dogs at work increase cooperation and happiness. Oh, you want to meet my dog? Okay,
Yes,
we're gonna introduce you to. There he is. His name's Wrinkles. So say hi to Dr. Paul Zach. What's that? All right. Yeah, he wants me to say, he wanted me to tell you something, but all right, here's what, you ready? He said, hey, Paul, give me some skin. Give me some skin. I got to tell you, Tom Dutta like butter there, my master, my other master. He's a great guy. He runs the Quiet Warrior show. He's CEO, runs his own. But you know what? He gets mad. He doesn't like this guy. He doesn't like wrinkles. I said, why do you like wrinkles? He said, because he said, every day I wake up and I look at him and I look in the mirror and I go, that's what this body's going to look like in 20 years. But I mean, we all love wrinkles. Anyway, just talk to us about that. Everybody wants to know dogs at work. And, do you go to work? Do you stay at home? This whole COVID thing. Just tell us a little bit about what you think.
Yes, we've done research on animal-human interactions. And what we found is that dogs are more effective at reducing stress in humans, at facilitating immersion.
Look at the score.
Humans. Yeah. So, it's a great brain hack. Again, the book is full of brain hacks. So by having dogs around, we're more relaxed, we're happier. What's better than petting a dog when you're having a bad day or a good day for that matter? So go dogs.
And what about working in the office and not? I know you just touched on it, but really is that key to immersion? Like, can you get immersion even if you're working virtually, or what do you think? Have you done any research on that in companies?
We published research on this, but the 2D is not bad. But if I'm in person, I get more bandwidth, I get a hug, I get a smile, I have more time to chat. If I'm scheduling Zooms, then the chit chat stuff that we normally do at work that builds social connections that make work more fun and easier are less likely to occur.
Yeah, man, your immersion scores are really going up there, up. Hey, listen, I just want to finish off and just tell you that we're so honored to have you on the Quiet Warrior show. He doesn't let me in the laboratory very often, and so I'm distracted here, the shiny objects. But you know what? We just started using AI. Do you use AI somehow in your business?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Sure.
Well, I want to just tell you how we're doing it. We don't have a big fat budget like you do. You fancy cats out there who's got all that money in your labs. But we have a AI assistant, and you're looking at him. This is our AI researcher. So, Paul, this is how it works. Hey, I need some research on Paul. Okay. And we send him out, and he goes, does the research. Hey, I need a picture of Zach Nunn, Zach's mom, Nunn. All right, so here's the thing. We got to apologize because something happened. And Dr. J.J. Kennedy, who is a big fan of what we're doing here. And so I said to Wrinkles, I said, you go out and do your research. And he went, so we taught him actually to use his little paws. And he goes on the keyboard and he starts pucking away and whatnot. So I said, look, we just need for the show, we need a picture of Paul Zach's mom. So here's what I said to him. I said, hey, Zach mom. So he typed it in, and that's what we got. We still have work to do.
Never know.
Anyway, that almost made the show, and Tom Dutta like butter there would have been really angry. But you see what you did there? We didn't want. That's a black nun, not Zach's mom. Anyway, hey, Dr. Paul Zach, it's just amazing having you riffing with me here. You'll probably be working with us more and more in the future, but just want to say that Tom Dutta like butter, he's the real deal here, and I'm glad he let you in the studio. So I can just go back and get him now. We'll put you back on the screen for a minute. Tell us while you're on there where we can get a hold of your book, where we can get a hold of you, and I know you do a lot of speaking and stuff. All right, so
Will do.
Thanks for all that. Talk to you.
Yeah. So feel free to contact me on the crawler there. You can see my personal website, my company website. Happy to engage with you if you've got additional questions. You can go to besttuesdayever.com to learn more about our free emotional fitness app that you can use to extend your health span. And I'll keep talking. We're waiting for Tom to come back. So for people still listening, thanks for joining. Very, very nice of you. It was a real pleasure. And that Tom Dutta guy, he's a character.
All right, we're getting back in the studio here. All right. Well, I was just Just want to get a cup of water there. What did you meet him? What do you think?
Man, Elvis, what a character. So I know you have a research lab in your basement. So he said you don't let him out much, but he seemed happy to be back on screen.
Well, I told him, Paul, I said, look, because he did this stupid thing. Like we were doing some research. We have an AI assistant, Wrinkles, and he came up with a horrific picture that would have ruined the whole thing. And I said, if you tell Paul about that, you're fired. So I hope he didn't go there and tell you about it. But Paul, let's be real as we wrap up here. I'm going to put on the screen here again. You've been tracking us live with your technology, looking at immersion scores. And so I want to just give you a final honoring here. Everybody, when I think about Paul Zak, I don't script this. There's 4 words, leadership words I'm going to attach as his interview. One is a maven. This man, if you're looking for information, work, research on the topic of immersion, Paul Zak's the one. Number 2 is love. I don't know if people know, Paul, but you were on a show once. They call you the love doctor. I think it was a dating game or something. And there are people who, when we listen to you and we listen to your work, and I understand at the break you were talking about mental health and things, it comes out of you. You light me up, and you're just a man who is full of that love. And I think it comes from being raised by a great mom like yours. So I want to thank you for that. 3 is leadership. You're not only trailblazing, but you're providing leadership in a space that has never been done before, and I think it's going to impact, it's going to change the world. And number 4 is just fun. I mean, nobody would stay on this long with me doing these crazy things, but I asked for your permission. So thank you for being on the show today, Paul. It's been awesome.
It's been so much fun, Tom. Thank you for making it awesome.
All right. So everybody, we're just going to bring something up on the screen here for a minute. So stay with us for a moment. Paul, just stand by. All right. So as we say goodbye to Paul Zak here, live that life with purpose, everybody. Live life with purpose and find that passion like you hear from Paul J. Zak, and live the life that you deserve and desire. We'll see you again on the Quiet Warrior Show, and we will be putting this together as an epic release in the next couple months. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you for listening to the Quiet Warrior Show. Create is a motive-based leadership development firm. www.kreat.ca.
All right, stand by. We're going to take us offline here.